I ran into a man I used to supervise at the transit yards a few days ago, right outside the local hardware store in Charlotte. He is a few years younger than me, a man who used to be able to muscle a heavy commercial bus steering column into submission without breaking a sweat. But that afternoon, he was leaning heavily against a metal shopping cart, taking a long, exhausted pause after every 4 or 5 steps. When I walked over and asked him how he was holding up, he just looked down at his feet. He told me his legs felt like they were filled with wet concrete. He said they were always cold, always heavy, and that he was starting to price out those aluminum wheelchair ramps for his front porch because the 3 wooden steps to his door had become a mountain. It broke my heart to hear him surrender like that, mostly because I remember exactly how terrifying it was when my own legs started feeling the exact same way. I am going to talk to you today about what is actually happening deep inside your body when your legs start to feel like lead at the end of the day. I am going to explain why the cheap cooking oils sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now might be the very things suffocating the circulation in your lower body while you quietly age. And I am going to share the specific combination of 2 natural, unrefined oils I take every single morning that brought the heat and the feeling back to my feet. You do not have to just sit there and watch your world shrink to the size of a living room recliner. Control begins with what you stop normalizing, and you should never normalize the loss of your own mobility. For a very long time, I bought into the exact same story that most men of my generation were sold. We were told that all heavy fats were the enemy of the heart, so we threw out the butter and we filled our pantries with those massive, clear plastic jugs of heavily refined vegetable oils. Soybean oil, corn oil, industrial canola oil. The labels were always covered in bright promises about being light and heart healthy. So I thought I was doing the responsible thing for my family. We cooked with them, we fried with them, we poured them over everything, completely unaware that we were quietly poisoning our own plumbing. We thought if we did not feel physical pain in our chest, our cardiovascular system was fine. But numbers matter, and the patterns behind them matter more. The pattern I was building was destroying my circulation from the ground up. When I was running the transit operations, one of the most critical maintenance protocols we had involved the hydraulic lines on the heavy city buses. Those hydraulic systems relied on high-quality, perfectly clean fluids to keep the pressure even. When the fluid was right, those massive heavy doors would open smoothly, and the air brakes would respond the exact second the driver applied pressure. But sometimes a mechanic trying to cut corners would use cheap, degraded, recycled fluid. The system would not fail that same afternoon, but over weeks and months, the heat and the friction of the road would cause that cheap fluid to break down. It would leave a sticky, thick sludge lining the inside of the hydraulic hoses. The lines would get stiff. The mechanisms would get incredibly sluggish. The doors would struggle to open, groaning under their own weight. That is exactly what happens inside the blood vessels of your legs when you consume highly processed, refined industrial oils year after year. Those cheap oils have been stripped of everything protective and loaded with inflammatory compounds. When they enter your system, they create a constant low-level fire inside your arteries. They irritate the endothelium, which is the incredibly delicate inner lining of your blood vessels. When that lining gets inflamed, it gets stiff. It stops being able to widen and contract smoothly. Plaque starts to build up over the irritated areas like a scab. Your blood gets thicker, acting more like that heavy mechanical sludge than water, and it simply cannot push through the narrowing pipes down to your legs and feet. You do not feel this happening in your chest right away. You feel it in your extremities because your feet are the furthest point from the pump. You start noticing that you need to sit down much earlier in the afternoon. You start wearing thick woolen socks to bed even when the Carolina summer heat is pushing 90 degrees outside, because your toes feel like they have been packed in ice. You start looking at the stairs in your own home like they are an enemy. My son Marcus, who analyzes risk for a living, used to point out how many men in our community just accepted this decline. They chalked it up to getting old. They stopped walking to the neighborhood store. They stopped standing on the sidelines at their grandchildren's games. They accepted the heavy chair, and eventually, they accepted the wheelchair. never realizing that their blood vessels were just crying out for better maintenance. I was not willing to let my world get that small without a fight. My daughter Danielle, who works in nutrition, sat me down and explained that if bad fats could stiffen the lines, the right fats could help clean them out and soften them up. She showed me the research, and it had nothing to do with expensive pharmaceutical miracles. It was about using specific, high-quality natural oils as daily medicine for the vascular system. I learned about extra virgin olive oil, the real unrefined kind that comes in a dark glass bottle to protect it from the light. It is packed with natural compounds called polyphenols. Those polyphenols act like a fire extinguisher inside your blood vessels, actively cooling down the inflammation and protecting your cholesterol from oxidizing and sticking to the arterial walls. But the real turning point for my legs was learning about plant-based omega-3 fatty acids, specifically the ones found in chia seeds and flax seeds. When you press those seeds into oil without using harsh heat, you get a concentrated liquid that does something remarkable. It actually reduces the viscosity of your blood. It helps the blood flow easily, making it thinner and more efficient, while simultaneously telling those stiffened blood vessels to relax and open up. It sounded so simple that my stubborn pride almost dismissed it. Most people wait for a scare before they change, and they expect the solution to be painful and complicated. But I decided to treat my body with the same respect I demanded for the transit fleet. I decided to change the fluids. The first thing I did was walk into my kitchen and throw every single clear plastic jug of refined vegetable oil into the garbage bin. Gloria watched me do it, and she did not say a word. She just started helping me clear the shelves. We completely stopped bringing that industrial sludge into our home. If we absolutely need to apply heat to a pan for cooking, we use avocado oil now, because it is incredibly stable and does not break down into toxic, inflammatory byproducts the second the temperature gets hot. But the most important change I made, the one that I credit for the feeling returning to my toes, does not involve cooking at all. It involves a very specific, deliberate morning ritual. Every single morning, before I eat breakfast, before I drink my coffee, I take a small glass of warm water. I squeeze a little bit of fresh lemon juice into it to help my digestion wake up. Then I take exactly 1 teaspoon of high-quality cold-pressed chia seed oil and 1 teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil, and I stir them directly into that warm water. I drink it straight down. The chia seed oil delivers the omega-3 to thin out the blood and calm the inner lining of the veins. The extra virgin olive oil delivers the polyphenols to soften the arterial walls and keep the cholesterol moving instead of sticking. Bringing those two specific oils together creates a compounding effect that is far stronger than taking either of them alone. It is not a magic potion. You do not drink it on a Tuesday and run a marathon on a Wednesday. It is consistent, deliberate maintenance. But after doing this every single morning, the changes started to become undeniable. First, the deep, aching cold in my feet started to recede, as if the heat was finally being allowed to travel all the way down my legs. Then, the heavy, dead weight in my calves began to lift. I stopped looking at the stairs as a threat. I stopped feeling like gravity was actively trying to pull me down into a chair. The blood was finally moving freely again, delivering the oxygen and the nutrients my lower body had been starving for over the last decade. I am 72 years old, and my body has plenty of miles on it. I still have to make sure I get outside and actually walk, because the muscles in your calves act as a secondary pump to push that blood back up toward your heart. An engine needs to run to stay clean. But the difference is that now, when I want to move, my body responds. When my 3 grandchildren come running at me, I can plant my feet, stand tall, and catch them without fearing that my legs are going to buckle underneath me. I do not have to accept the wheelchair, and neither do you. Do not let anyone tell you that cold, heavy legs are just a normal part of getting older. Take a hard look at the oils you are allowing into your kitchen. Stop feeding the inflammation that is choking your circulation. Go find yourself a dark glass bottle of real extra virgin olive oil and a bottle of cold-pressed chia seed oil. Keep them away from the heat. Treat them like the medicine they are. and start your morning by giving your veins the exact lubrication they are begging for. There is a lot of life left to live, and I want you standing on your own 2 feet to experience every single minute of it.